Hi, good afternoon. I'm so happy to see you. Welcome to Lamb Network TV. Yes, you hear that right. That's lambnetwork.tv. And that's Messianic Lamb Network and the new little call tag and way to get there. I hope you go to the website and see all the different things offered there, but that's the domain there. So I hope you enjoy that and go and check that out. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Dr. Robin Gould, and we are going to go through a little bit of the portion today, like we pretty much do every week. And if you've not heard of me, I am one of the Becky book authors. I do teaching of the Torah from an attachment perspective. And I am a marriage and family therapist, and that's kind of my world. Like, that's what I do. So if you've just joined for the first time, welcome. I always start every program telling people the future begins now, because that means what exactly I said. We are creating the future by being present and engaged now. And the best thing that you can do is just be present in the moment. It's something I'm always working on. It doesn't come naturally to me. But I love when that actually happens. And I can't really say it happens when I do it. When I really don't go into default settings of being a future thinker like I am, and I actually am present. So I always like to remind myself the future begins now. So a quick little housekeeping note, I will be out of town for the next 2 weeks. I am going to be heading up north to be with my family for a wedding. So I will just be gone on the 7th and the 14th. Just to let you know, there'll be archive programs on those weeks. And I'll try to pick good ones. But today you're going to get a little bit of an experiment. Here's your experiment. I actually had to pull an all-nighter last night. I was spending the whole night caring for a sick family member, so I haven't slept at all. And so I'm kind of pointing to dots at this point. So we'll just see how this turns out. Who knows if we'll do the full hour, but I do have a point that I would like to share with you. So we will just kind of get into what we're talking about, which is the Torah portion of this week, which is Pincus. So that's Numbers 25:10 through 30 verse 1. But where we won't ever read the whole thing here, because the brevity of our time is we're limited to an hour, and I don't even know if we'll do an hour today. But that's what so let me just kind of give you the cliff notes here of this Torah portion. And so this is about Aaron's grandson. And Aaron dies before Moses, so you know that. And he's rewarded because he was really zealous for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, righteousness and rules. And so he kills the Simonite, this prince, I think it's Zimri, and the Midianite princess. So he kills them because they were doing wrong. And of course there's God, and God is blesses him with this covenant of peace and the priesthood. And also in this Torah portion, there's a census of the people that's taken. And this is, I think the ages were 20 men, 20 through 60, which would be workers counted through, when it doesn't mean the women and the children, the elderly and the younger people, that they don't matter. It's just that in a census, it was about what can we expect, outwardly in terms of an input sort of a way outside the home. And Moshe is actually designated to divide this land with this lottery, according to all the tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel. And so then you have these 5 daughters, and how to say that word, Zelafhad. They actually appealed to Moses to say that they should be granted their portion of the land, which belonged to their father, if they died without sons. And so God actually thinks that's right, that the women would grant that inheritance, and they would be able to claim that land. And then surrounds that with more details about the Torah laws of inheritance. And so you're getting that. And then you have Moses empowering Joshua to succeed him and lead the people into the promised land, because he doesn't get to go into the promised land of Israel. So And in the end, this parsha actually gets into the details and the minutia more of the daily offerings. So this would be like, all the offerings that you would bring on like Rosh Chodesh would be the first of the month, or the Sabbath, and it also about the festivals of Passover, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, and all those, and Shemini Atzeret. So you have like some of that detail. So now we're just going to talk about like Numbers 27 verses 12 through 23, because I really just, we just can only make a point. There's so much involved. And if you're not familiar with my program, I always come from an attachment perspective. That's my lane. So I believe very strongly in getting that portion in every week. And I believe very strongly in study and in discipline and everything. Last week, you got me talking. I was talking about people that were exhausted and tired and feeling overinformed and getting more vacant and numb when things are heating up really globally. And it feels like there's been nothing global since the flood of Noah, that we should be studying longer and more and harder. And so in some people, they've studied a lot, and this might be a time for them to, keep reading their portion and do their basics, but really be present and focus on the relationship aspect and having an encounter, understanding an encounter. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. I want to kind of do part 2. And I made sure I did a disclaimer on my other show last week, because I don't want people taking that out of context, that somebody would be suggesting that they lighten up their study. That isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is meet the need you exactly have and understand that it's not one size fits all the time. There is a reality of that in communal harmony, for sure. One size fits all pretty much on some things. Absolutely. But people are struggling right now. And I want people to know that they're not alone in their struggle, and that, there's grace and there's peace and there's a way to walk that maybe you shift and pivot a little as your needs change, and then shift and pivot back as those needs change. So we just get a little fluid with how a relationship is. And that's sort of how relationships are. You have a sick family member, you help them. You are not going to the next day do your best teaching or be in your best whatever, but you did what you had to do. Be fluid, move with it, go with it. So anyway, we're going to talk about this whole idea about Joshua succeeding Moses. Okay, so this is what the Lord, where I said we were starting. I'm not starting at the beginning. It says, the Lord said to Moshe, go up into this mountain of Abarim and see the land that I have given to the people of Israel. When you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people as your brother Aaron was. Okay, so this is why. Because you rebelled against my word in the wilderness of Zin, which is a place I've been, and every time I even read that word, I get goosebumps all over, because that is actually a very special place in Israel to me. When I go, love it. So when the congregation quarreled, failing to uphold me as holy at the waters before their eyes. Okay. So in the wilderness of Zin, remember, this was the water of Meribah and Kadesh in that wilderness. Okay. Moshe spoke to the Lord, and this is what he says. So interesting. He does not argue with the Father. He says, let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord may not be as sheep that have no shepherd. His concern was for the people, but he didn't argue. The Lord said to Moshe, take Joshua the son of Nun, a man whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him, make him stand before Eleazar the priest and all the congregation, and you shall commission him in their sight. You shall invest him with some of your authority, that all the congregation of the people of Israel may obey. So, like, basically, inch in here. And he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire for him by the judgment of the Urim before the Lord. And at his word they shall go out, and at his word they shall come in, both he and all the people of Israel with him, the whole congregation. So he really very much checks off every box that Moshe was hoping for. And Moshe did as the Lord commanded him. He takes Joshua and he makes him stand before Eleazar the priest and the whole congregation. He lays his hands on him and commissions him as the Lord directed through Moshe. So he very specifically agreed with, because you're not getting, there's an argument here. And he actually really did what the Father wanted. So this is interesting. So Moshe is such an interesting person in the Bible. Really interesting character. He was raised in Pharaoh's house with great privilege, and yet at the same time knew he was adopted. He knew that this was not his original birth bloodline. He got that. And he was able to see the injustice toward the Hebrews. And of course, that's where he acted and killed the Egyptian, and then flees for 40 years and then returns with when we have Pesach, right? He returns, we have the plagues. He's like, let my people go. And then he of course, he takes the people as their leader, and they go through the sea, and they are nourished by the manna, and they are hydrated by the rock when he would speak to the rock. And you see, I just did the gesture for strike, because that's what we're going to talk about. But we have an attachment issue here. So the first thing I notice in when I read this is I notice how Moshe just, okay, so I'll die like my brother died, and we'll make sure someone gets the people in, and it's going to be the right person, and I'm going to be the one to echo your blessing on the people who have gotten to know me. And interesting how that follows. Yes, the daughters get the inheritance if they have no sons. Yes, like, we're a family, right? I kind of get this, but Moshe isn't arguing. So there you see, Moshe and God have a relationship, an attachment relationship. You don't see Moshe tearing his garments and rolling around in the ashes and renting his garments and grieving and moaning, because I don't see him being upset at that news. I don't see him being upset or worried or thinking this is a bad decision or, man, he blew it. Because I think that is where we come from. What is attachment? Attachment is trust. Attachment transcends so many things that we think are really important. And culturally, we have been dislodged from understanding true attachment. And I think the most important thing when we read the Bible is to read it from an attachment perspective, because this book, the word Levi is to join. This is very important that we know to join. To join. That's being attached. And so when you think about what Moshe did, okay, he was raised in Pharaoh's house, dining on the best of everything, the most comforts of everything. And here are his people. They have taskmasters set over them. They're scourged. They're punished. They're mistreated. They just get enough food. They're struck, right? And so the way I see this is Moshe was selected by the Father to be brought into that system, benefit from that system, leave that system, and re-enter it righteously, even if he needed a mouthpiece, whatever deficiencies we have, and be a shepherd. So whenever you meet people that weren't raised in like a traditionally, religious home or whatever, you know what? I wasn't. You know what? Don't despise that. That is the goal for some people, that they need to be in cahoots with this system, that they understand it. And then they go and they deal with their lives the way they need to. They encounter their burning bush that does not become consumed, and they are transformed into their destiny, and they walk right into their name, and they be who they be. Okay. But the idea that to me, it was very symbolic about the rock. I think the symbolism is, if you ever if you have kids, I'd like to take things from a parental place. Okay. When you have a child who is always testing the limits, always testing you, just a mischievous child, that's hard and tiring. When you have a child that you want to just very easily parent them and tell them, okay, get your homework done. And then after homework, we will have a family movie on the couch together. I'll make popcorn, right? But you have some kids, they will do that. They'll get their homework done and look forward to family movie night, whatever. And then you have the child that, they don't do their homework. And then the whole family, what do? You're in this position where, okay, well, the family had this plan. This one child didn't comply. And then you start seeing that pattern with this child. They are not compliant. So you automatically, when you're dealing with that child, you kind of show up almost angry. Here's the thing, so-and-so child, you're going to do your homework. Do you get me? And you're going to sit by me. I'll be on my laptop getting my work done, but you're right here. Do you know? Because we're going to have a family movie. Everyone's looking forward to it, and you are not going to ruin it for the rest. So you do you, boo. I do me, and we'll see in a half hour where you are, whatever. And you have to approach the child that way. You don't want to do that. But sometimes we know which kind of ego presence we need to approach the situation with, because we know the default settings of that person. We love that person. We value family time. And so different people have different personality quirks and different ways that now this child might be exceptional in another area where the other compliant child isn't, whatever. Everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. But I think the message here is the father is saying, what I want is a relationship with these people that you're going to demonstrate, human, right? The Messiah is unto Moshe, right? You're going to demonstrate this. And I don't want to show up striking them to get what I want. I just riding that donkey. Remember we talked last week? I just want to click my heels a little and they go. I don't want to have to strike this animal to make it do what it's got to do to get to where we need to go, where I can give it more water and whatever, I don't want, these people were enslaved and they were mistreated and wounded, and they didn't think they were valuable or know they were valuable. They weren't treated valuably. The Pharaoh was the god, and that god thought they deserved to be treated less than. So does the father want to show up angry already? Just here, I know all of you people are not going to do the right thing. No, he just wants to say, I've courted you. I've delivered you from captivity before I asked you to adhere to my vows and have this bond. I delivered you first, right? That's the first thing I did. I got angry at Pharaoh. And then I saved you. And I believe in his way, he got his through to Pharaoh. But I don't want to strike it. I want you to show these people that you can just speak to the rock. And the good God of that is their provider will provide the water. It is not you striking anything. It is me providing in gentleness. And of course, Moshe strikes the rock twice. Now, he doesn't argue with the father about this decision that you won't be the one to bring him in. Okay, so what's interesting to me is that Moshe understands things, I think. This is just my opinion. Take this with a grain of salt, but this is how I see Moshe. I feel like he understands things. He believes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he believes that bush wasn't consumed, nor will he. And that his destiny had a stopping point in this realm. But I don't think he worried about the next one, because I think he truly talked to the Father, and the Father brought him through every time. His birth was miraculous. The way he was not killed, where he was raised, the way he responded when confronted with injustice, and everything he did after that, where he was humble and he was, I don't know, a reluctant hero, right? But loved the people, always fought for the people, got mad at the people righteously, right? Like we do, right? Why are you doing these things? You are stiff-necked people, But striking the rock and he being the identified leader, for the sake of the people, the Father had to act on that. Just like the child, you don't get to go do your homework by yourself, because then the rest of the family misses out on family movie night, and that's not fair. Not that everything's fair, but we are looking forward to bonding as a family over this, appropriate movie. And no, you're going to be sitting right next to me to make sure this happens. Then we all benefit, but you need that extra attention. Right? So the Father shows up all the time in what's good for the people. So that was better for the child, the non-compliant child. It was better for the compliant children. The parent acts. So that when Moshe sees the Father acts in a way that's good for the people, that is right in keeping with the Moshe we've seen all along. He loves these people, and he gets angry with them because he expects more, and he fights for them. He wagers with the Father about that, about the people. And so the message of attachment is, Moshe, I put you in this place to be a leader, and you didn't demonstrate me as safe for the people. You brought them back to where you got to hit stuff to get results. But not from me. I'm their Father. You're thirsty? Here's your drink. I'm not going to withhold water from you when I've taken you away from all the water you had. I'm giving you better water. And so the Father acted, and Moshe received it. And I think Moshe got it. I think Moshe said, okay, this is just my opinion, but from what I've read about Moshe and the way I study him, Moshe just seems like he not only wants what's right for the people, but he will accept what's right for him. And if there was a closure he needed for some sort of healing, or to kind of get that message he needed, or whatever, to not be the one to bring them into the promised land, then you know what? I think Moshe was good with that. I think Moshe cared about the bigger picture. I think Moshe lifted his eyes and saw, the future begins now. And it didn't need to be him that actually crossed over there. He had already been a major player in this amazing drama of what happened. And so Moshe's a special person, right? Very special. And the Father, he picks David, King David. He has a certain people, Abraham, he's just attached and uses them greatly. That's why you read more about some than the other, I think. There's just more documented information. But the message I think that the Father was saying is that I want the people to know I'm not like Pharaoh, out striking everything to manipulate and control and to gain control over people. I don't control people through thirst. I provide for them out of love. You must hit nothing. Ask and you shall receive. So if the Father wants the people to know he's going to meet their needs without violence, without anger, because he does get angry and he does get jealous. And any normal relationship with free will, both parties will experience that. That's good. That's not bad. But this event to me implies the high priority the Father puts on cultivating the trust of the people to know that he is a God that meets their needs. You just have to speak. You don't have to threaten. Okay? So, operating outside of punishment wasn't something that these people really would understand. They needed living examples of this. They needed to see bring forth water and water comes forth, right? Like that's, you ever had that in your life happen where you're just struggling with something and you just almost feel the Father say you do not have because you do not ask, and you pray, and the next day or that night or something that prayer is answered. And it's just so, that happened to me recently. It is so humbling and so, it brings you low in a good way. Like it brings you groundedness. Like that's why people, I think, fall on their face and just can't even imagine how blessed they are, because you get closer down to being grounded and safe on that earth. You know, when you're a kid and you lie back and you look up at the clouds, have you ever done that? You lay there on the grass and you're way grounded and you're just kind of like safe on this planet. And you look up and it's like, I remember as a child, it's like you're almost a little scared at how vast and huge everything is above you, you know? So we fall on our face and we just get very like small so that we can really just be Tinkerbell with that one emotion. You know what I mean? Just kind of have that one emotion at a time, which is safe, covered, heard, and protected. It doesn't mean if your prayer isn't answered the way you want that you're not safe, covered, nurtured, and protected. It means like here, it wasn't in Moshe or God's best interest or the people's best interest for Moshe to be the one to do it, because he didn't demonstrate enough of that attachment piece for even Moshe didn't. And the Father said, no, they're going to see me act and shift this leadership role onto somebody else. And you're going to come, and be laying with your brothers, that would be, that's the way they would say, you die and you'll be with you. Okay. So this is one of the most important principles. If attachment, there's really no such thing as the most important principles. There's like the 3 pillars, which we talk about all the time on this program. But for a relationship, for there to be attachment, there has to be mutual benefit. And for there to be mutual benefit, there has to be free will. There has to be free will. Okay. So I want to just kind of talk about, let's get a little bit into like what I was talking about last week. So last week, which was I think so it was I don't remember what the date exactly was, but it's the one where it's the Balak. It's the Balak show. So I talked about having an encounter rather than just more information. That does not say don't read the portion. I don't mean don't study. What I was saying is that it's very important that we don't just become informed, but that we become involved in this relationship. We're not just reading about this relationship. We are actually having this relationship always. And I think the rock was to be an encounter and not a knowledge moment. It was to be an experience. It was supposed to be an experience that people had, and not just an idea they had. Okay. And so people require encounters to know things. Until you're confronted with a scenario, you might think you know what someone's going through. No, you do not, right? And everything is, of course, heating up now on this earth, and there's global impact of different things. Like I said, nothing global has happened to this earth since the days of Noah. But you see a difference, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how attachment, and I love this Moshe story about striking the rock, and the way I kind of connect this with attachment and having an encounter, because I want to contrast this with some quotes from Buddha. because people are always wondering, like, who should I believe? There's Buddha says some wise things, some really interesting things. And Confucius says some interesting things. You have Plato, you have different, all different gods, to Hinduism, whatever. You have different wisdom, like coming from different places. Now, I would say all true wisdom comes from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's my bias. I will never apologize for that. And I will never change my mind. And that's it forever. That is one thing I do know forever. But Buddha was a figure of, peaceful living. And I want to challenge that a little bit about peace. I would love to talk about peace a little bit and how it relates to attachment. But I want to read a couple Buddhist quotes, not because I agree with them, but because I actually don't agree with these. And I want to challenge them, and I want to give you a reason why. And Buddha, it's interesting because I'm an attachment specialist. So that's my specialty. Like, that's what I'm excited about. That's what I want people to be excited about too. And I want them to find safe ways to be attached and to recognize what attachment looks like, to find out their role in it, how they can improve, and how they can help others be more attachable, like help them create safety for them so they can attach to you, because the whole idea is family, right? Here's a line from Buddha. This is Buddha. Okay. He says, attachment is the source of all suffering. So obviously portraying attachment in a negative light. Now, I am not going to disagree with that as a fact of attachment is the source of all suffering. Because if you don't care about something, well, wait a minute. See? As I'm saying, yeah, that's true. You can't say it without going, well, wait a second. On its face, it seems true, because if you've never, it's better to have loved and lost and never have loved at all. And other people are like, oh, no. If I had known I'd feel this, I never would have ever wanted to have a feeling for another person. Okay, but is that not suffering? Loneliness? Right? If we're created for connection, and we are created for connection. Buddha's wrong. Attachment might be the source of all suffering, but the coin has two sides. It's also the source of all joy. You can prove and litigate the point about suffering in court, but which court? This earthly court that's so stupid, or the heavenly court where the Father wants to join with us, dwell with us, love us, created us as a gift he gave himself? Buddha's wrong. He's halfway there, that attachment is a source of all suffering, but he doesn't finish it. So it must be something wonderful, because wonderful comes with suffering. It always does. You'll never have an up without a down. You'll never have an in without an out. You won't have a good without a bad, or you wouldn't be able to even have the definition of good. Here's another quote he makes, and I disagree. He says, and I quote, "To be free from suffering, free yourself from attachments." Okay, you just say these things to an attachment specialist and we just break out in hives. Okay, you might avoid some suffering. Absolutely, you might avoid some suffering. But you will suffer in avoiding joy. Buddha doesn't know everything people think he knows, right? He's not God. He's not helicopter. He's parade, watching float by float. He doesn't see it. Being detached, maybe it has its own victory in that you're not crying every day, but you're certainly not connected. And you're certainly not going to discover really who you are all by yourself as an island, right? That's very lonely. You will fill in the void. And it's not going to be with Buddha, okay? It's going to be with alcohol or shopping or food or sex or all different manner of things, addictions. Because people don't want to be alone in this world. They need a creator that values them and a family to enjoy that creator with and walk through this earth together. Buddha is wrong there. He says you only lose what you cling to. Quote unquote, Buddha. Okay, you only lose what you cling to. But if you've never clung to something meant for you, you've already lost. You never even started. That gun never went off. Or it went off and you stood still and said, I didn't lose. But they're like, but you didn't run. Yeah, but we can't lose. Yeah, but you forfeited the race. You lost by default. Is life one big empty default where you don't ever have pain? Our Father has pain. He chose that for himself. Now, I hate that I have to disagree with Yoda because I love Yoda. I love Yoda. And he has some wise things to say. But when he's talking to young Anakin, and I know there are people that they don't like Star Wars, people in religious systems, some people, they don't like it. They think, I love it. I've seen every one of them 40,000 times. And I own them all and love Star Wars. I feel like there's so many great principles there. So just, that's my bias. Love that show. You learn a lot about good and evil and the force of good and evil. So it's just a metaphor. It's a story. It's theater. Okay. I'm not taking it seriously. This is what Yoda says, and I quote, attachment leads to jealousy. The shadow of greed, that is. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Okay. Unquote. Now, Yoda is not a real person, but a real person wrote this as they developed this character of Yoda as this mentor, this Jedi mentor. Now, here's what really bothers me about this really bothers me. Now, he says attachment leads to jealousy. Yes, it does. Jealousy is not bad. Jealousy is only bad if you go kill people because you're jealous. Okay. Jealousy shows some form of investment. Jealousy, be angry, do not sin. Be jealous, do not sin. Okay. The Father is jealous, right? Now, if you're attached to something, you will have pain when it abandons you. Yeah. You're setting yourself up for failure if you look at it that way, but you're also setting yourself up for connection and the rewards therein. Now, if you're a creator who knows that the Lamb was slain at the foundation of the world and that he will restore all things, he is more than willing to walk through all these things. He knows the pain he and you will go through, but he knows ultimately that's going to work out. But he says attachment leads to jealousy. Okay, I agree with that, but I don't find that a negative thing. Now he's talking to young Anakin who loves his mother, and his mother died and it traumatized him as a young man. And so then he's going to get married to Padme, and he's so afraid of losing her that he actually consults the dark side to keep her from dying. So if you take Yoda in context, what he's really talking about is the false self, not true attachment. He says attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed, that is. So then I'm going to start agreeing a little bit with Yoda here, because what he's saying is the greedy aspect of jealousy, the false self, where you're operating out of fear all the time and not out of connection. But you're trying to solve that problem. You're not trusting the creator. But he says, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. So that wouldn't be the example the Father gives us. He doesn't let go of you. He doesn't let go. And is it sad when one sheep he leaves the 99 to go get the one? So while there are some things that Yoda says that I think are in this sentence, right? I think that they are interesting. And the ultimate idea is that attachment is viewed as weakness Detachment is viewed as strength. And just being on your own is the answer. But the Bible's a whole different book. It's be with me. I will dwell with you. You will dwell with me. That was the point of this whole thing. Here's my special desires of how you do it. And I made you just the way you are. But I'm dad and I know more than you. And here's how to do it. So little kids don't understand certain things that their parents are asking them to do. They don't know what they don't know. When the parent is grabbing the child's little hand to cross the street and the child just feels so encumbered and just, they think that the car is avoiding them. They don't realize the parent is keeping the car from hitting them because they don't understand cars. We are that way. We're the kids. So Buddhism is a philosophy that had a leader. But that leader strikes the rock. He doesn't speak to it because the rock doesn't talk to Buddha. The rocks declare the glory of God. And so we are not going to confuse a philosophy with a relationship with a divine creator that values you. Buddha didn't create anybody. He's part of the created. And a philosophy and an idea is a very lonely bedfellow, okay? Connection, relationship, risk, investment. Okay, this is where we need to be. So what is true peace? Emptiness? No. I think this whole last couple of years has shown us how much we really need each other. In some people, particularly some introverts, found some easier aspects of, so much less small talk I have to make. That's me, right? I am a withdrawer more than you would think. I'm an introvert, strong introvert. And I'll tell you, it messed with my head, just feeling caged up and missing all of the things and the rhythms that stabilized me in terms of connection with my women friends and my mentors, and just like showing up and doing a lot of conferences together. Like, I'm not saying you have to go to conferences to connect, but that was an avenue for me where everybody would meet together. We'd have this big family reunion and we would just connect and bond and be there. And traveling to Israel, with friends and being together in the land and learning together. And then you put me on my own way too much, and you start seeing that I start getting tired. I'm tired of resting. And then information becomes hard to take on. And that's where I was trying to go with last week, just talking about, like, if you're exhausted from exhaustion, if you're exhausted from doing, and you're just like, you don't really get up and move all day, and maybe you have a cold or you're spending the day in bed or whatever, you don't feel well, or you get that sluggish, yucky feeling, and then it's just really hard to concentrate. There's a lot of people in that place spiritually. The idea isn't to just discipline yourself to get more information, is to have an encounter as to, why do I need to get out of this bed? Why? There's something to get up for. Have an encounter. Be present. Pray to the Lord your God. Ask him, help me remember what it felt like to lay down on the grass and look up at the sky and just be like, I am so small. That is so big. That must mean you love me a lot. I always get really upset when people say that the universe is too huge for us to be the only thing in it. It's a big waste of space. I disagree fundamentally on that point. I believe that's the exact point he's making. That literally, in this enormous universe, you, yes, you, are my everything. What a beautiful, extremely beautiful metaphor. Our Father knows our voice. We know his. Through all the realms of the universe, that voice, universe, single voice, right? Single word, spoken word, one. Let there be light. And there was light. So do we be in the dark void? Does God need us? Do we need God? Absolutely. He's created that need in himself, which is why he gets jealous. and makes decisions and wagers with Moshe and goes through this because he wants truth, the truth of you, the authenticity of you. He created you and he wants to authentically interact with you. And if that doesn't excite you to think that you impact the creative of the universe, I touched on this last week and on some other programs, you're missing it. You're missing that when you're laying on the grass looking up and it's a zillion miles away, you are seen. That's how amazing our Father is and how much he loves you. So I don't know. I wondered if this inspired you today. I think it does. I think it's exciting to say we're not under threat. We're under voice. He tells us, here's how to be a family. Here's how to dwell with me. Here's how to show up in the way I want you to. And he's created safety for us around how big and incredible he is by making, I believe, a compact system through the temple that we can do it his way and be safe. But anything that incredible has to have laws and rules and right. That's what I believe. His power is illustrated through the specific ways that after, he talks about you can't go in because you struck the rock, but here's how to reach me in these physical rituals because I'm so big. It's got to be me that sets this. You show up and just do it. I mean, that's amazing and exciting. The more complicated the temple gets, the more excited I get at how amazing my God is. And then when the parts of it get a little simple, like, wow, I think I get this. I see the pattern here. I'm so excited that he would let me know that and know him a bit better. And maybe I'm maturing and I'm getting to be a teenager finally, right? Getting off the milk, getting a little bit of that solid food. Let's look at the chat for a second. Apologize about the ring light. Y'all know I hate doing that too. Let's see who we have here. We have Kathy Watson and Jacker. Hello. Nice to see you. Hi. So good to see you. I'm glad you're here. How excellent. I hope you're enjoying the program. I hope this has been encouraging to you. I think it's encouraging to always remember, number one, how incredible the God we serve is. And number two, how incredible he says you are. And you don't believe it because you think it and wrote it on a Post-it and put it on your mirror. You believe it because the Father said it and because you trust him. Don't get confused about that. You can't challenge that he says you're good, but you can't invent your goodness either. How wonderful of a God we serve. We serve a good God. We serve the one and only God, the Most High God. And he loves you. Yes, you. So I'm so happy that we have this time. And if you want to make sure that you keep going to the website, I just want to make sure it's new. I want to make sure I say it exactly right. LMNetwork.tv. That's where you can find these programs and they'll never be taken down. And you never have to worry about conflict of interest, if you know what I mean. So anyway, you should check that out. So anyway, I am so glad that you were here today. I'm going to see you 2 weeks live in 2 weeks. And then there'll be archive programs between now and then. And we will be together again. And maybe I will have some good stories about my travels. But how exciting. So let's just say goodbye for now, knowing that the future begins now and who knows what's next. All I can say is it will be good. So nice to see you and I'll see you next time. Bye.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.